Haters are going to hate. Class starts today. Econ 101, Magic the Gathering style. Let's get into it. Roaming Throne is a desirable Magic the Gathering card. Many people play with Roaming Throne. Many people want a copy of Roaming Throne or have many copies of Roaming Throne. When we take a look at EDH Rec, which, by the way, is kind of the go-to tool for people that are building commander decks, not a sponsor. You can see Roaming Throne here is included in 6.21% of all of the deck data that EDH Rec has, which is insane. It's quite high, even though 6.21% doesn't seem quite high. It's high. We see it included in many of these top commanders that are very popular. Ur-Dragon, I believe, is still the #1 commander, most popular commander of all time. Miriam Sentinel Worm, Yuriko Tiger Shadow. These are all popular, well-played commanders, and Roaming Throne fits into these decks. People want Roaming Throne. People have Roaming Throne. And so the question is, what is your desire for a card like Roaming Throne? You can graph that desire on a chart that has something like your desire on the y-axis. Desire. Pardon my handwriting. And then on the x-axis would be something like your quantity, like how many you want of that thing. And you can chart out for anybody what their desire is for what kind of quantity. And often it might look something like this, is that you really want your first one, but as you get more of them, you don't want more. And eventually, it can get to 0 and go negative. There can become a point where you have so many copies of Roaming Throne that it's no longer something good to own. It's actually a liability in your life. So the first copy, and then we can chart this out. Let's just say 1, 2, 3. 1 Roaming Throne, 2 Roaming Thrones, 3 Roaming Thrones. Your first Roaming Throne is worth quite a bit. Much desire for it. Second Roaming Throne, still quite desirable. After all, we all need at least 15 commander decks. And then the third Roaming Throne is less desirable, but still desirable. Then let's say in your case, once you get your fourth Roaming Throne, it's just you could do with, or you could do without. You can't really see that on the screen, but it gets to 0. Oh, I guess you couldn't see my negativeness. Let me move my face up here. So this is our personal demand curve that eventually goes negative. So you literally rather pay someone money than get a 5th copy of Roaming Throne. This isn't super realistic, but you get the idea. It's actually probably more of a curved bottom of the slope, since you can always get rid of them. So there's no negative value. Anyways, all right. So what is this? This is your demand curve for Roaming Throne. We're going to plot another curve over here on this other screen. And this is going to be my desire to get rid of Roaming Throne, or to sell it. And so similarly, we have quantity that I'm willing to sell. And on here, we're going to have the value to someone else. If Roaming Throne is not very desirable to other people, I'm not going to be able to get rid of very many. But if Roaming Throne is very desirable, then I'm going to be able to get rid of, and I'm going to want to get rid of all of them. And we'll see the mechanism for that later. But as you can see, there's this line forming, this upward sloping line, which represents that as a seller, as somebody who has Roaming Throne and wants to get rid of it, that the higher the value is to those around me, the more I'm willing to get rid of it, the more copies I'm willing to get rid of. And the kind of spoiler here that you might have picked up on is that we can exchange this value here for money. The more people are willing to pay, the more likely I am to get rid of 1 copy, 2 copies, 5 copies of Roaming Throne. If the price of Roaming Throne is $30, maybe I keep one and I sell one. If the price of Roaming Throne is $60, maybe I sell both of them. This is the behavior that we see from sellers. And similarly, for demanders, it's not just your desire, but it's actually the price. Where if the price is very high for Roaming Throne, you might only want one copy. But if the price is lower for normal goods, you're going to want more and more copies. This is a demand curve, and this is a supply curve. Represents the kind of psychology of people who supply to the market. That's what the supply curve is. I'll label it. I guess I'll label it down here. Supply. And then over here we have the demand. So something I want you to think about for a second as I pull up another whiteboard is, what is the result when you put both of these people in the same room? What's going to happen? And it might be, too obvious, but they're going to trade. So what happens is we can map out this interaction. Let's say I have 3 copies of Roaming Throne. You want 1 copy, and we get in the same room. Remember, your willingness to buy, so this demand curve is you. And your willingness to buy 1 is up here. And this is me. I'm the one selling Roaming Throne. I'll tell you why I'm selling Roaming Throne in a minute, but you just need to know right now that I'm the one selling Roaming Throne. And if you'll recall, my willingness to sell 1 copy of Roaming Throne, or I'm willing to sell, if the price is down here, I'm willing to sell 1. If the price is all the way up here, then I'd be willing to sell 3 or whatever. But you only want 1. And we meet. What's going to happen is we meet and we're very cordial and cool and nice to each other. Not weird at all. Why would we be? And we find out that I have Roaming Throne and that you want a copy of Roaming Throne. And so we get talking that there might be an opportunity to make an exchange. You have money. I want your money. And you want my Roaming Throne. So what do we do? Well, naturally, we look it up on TCG Player. Because what else would we do? You look it up on TCG Player and you find out that the market price is $50, but there's plenty of copies selling around $46, whatever. And so we agree that the market price, and actually let me take a step back. I said this earlier, but I was willing to sell a copy if the price was $30. Let's label this curve a little bit. If the price was $30, I was willing to sell a copy. And remember, for you, if the price was $60, you were willing to buy 1 copy. So we get together and we look up the prices and we find out that the price, let's just say it's $45. It's closer to like 46 or whatever, but the math is clean. $45. Are you willing to buy a copy of Roaming Throne for $45? Of course you are. You are willing to buy a copy for $60. This distance between the market price and your willingness to pay is called a surplus. And we can actually graph out the area of your surplus right here. This represents a quantity and a price of value that you would get from purchasing a Roaming Throne for $45. It's a consumer surplus. If I was a better negotiator, I could have sat you down and like stuck it to you and said, look, buddy, I'm not parting with this Roaming Throne unless you pay me $60. And if you were a wuss, you would have said, okay, and you would have been willing to pay $60 because that was your marginal willingness to pay. But that's not how it went. We're nice guys and we're really cool with each other. And so we agreed on a price of $45. Now, you obviously are willing to buy for $45, but am I willing to sell for $45? Yes. Yes, I am. Obviously. I was willing to sell at $30. And if you were a better negotiator, you could have stuck it to me and said, look, bucko, if you want me to buy your roaming throne, you're going to take $30 here and now. And I would have maybe said, okay, and taken $30 and given you a roaming throne. But you were nice and we get along and we agreed on a market price of $45. But this space here is a seller surplus. And I guess I'll draw the lines going the other direction so we can distinguish them. When you walk away from this transaction, you get your roaming throne, I get $45. What are you thinking in your head? You're thinking, wow, I really stuck it to that guy. No, you didn't hardball negotiate with me, but you're thinking, I got serious value because this card was worth $60 to me and I'm just getting it for $45. Now, you're probably not thinking that because it's the market price. You're just thinking like, oh, I got the market price. But you're jazzed about the market price because for you, the roaming throne represents a way that you're going to kick your opponent's butts. And by opponents, I actually mean your close friends. You're going to manage to put the roaming throne in your Dragon deck and just build this ridiculous deck list that will win every game. And you're going to have so much fun and nobody else at the table will. And roaming throne will help you achieve that. Me, on the other hand, I'm walking away thinking this is great. I am so jazzed that the market price was $45 and that you were willing to buy for $45 because I was willing to sell for $30. And I got all of this surplus. In economics, they call this utils as kind of a shorthand for utility, like units of units of utility, utils, UTILS. And so if we exchange one product, what the surplus would be 15 utils of surplus for me and 15 utils of surplus for you. We are both walking away from this transaction feeling like winners. How is this possible? Well, it's because we have different preferences. And the reason we have different preferences is because I'm really good at Magic the Gathering and you are a Timmy. You just look at EDH Rec and saw what all the other Dragon players, but I've got the big brain to say, actually, I think that Roaming Throne is kind of a mediocre card, honestly. I mean, yes, it has Ward 2, but you've got to get it, it's got to stick, and then you've got to play the other creatures, and yeah, I guess it's okay, but I just don't think it's that good. And then, of course, you follow the crowd and play Roaming Throne. I'm just kidding. It's a great card. But you get the idea. I, as a seller, don't love the card, and I'm very happy to sell it. You, as the buyer, love the card, and you're happy to get it. It's our difference in preferences that makes this possible. And it makes it possible for two people. So two people both win. Completely consensual, completely frictionless, just two people that both have wants and desires that meet up and make an exchange and walk away victorious. So, what does this mean? Well, I stand by a little bit that Roaming Throne isn't actually that good of a card. I probably need my play group to beat me with it more so that I can change my mind. But this is the mark of what should be a free market economy. This is transactional relationships that are just built upon different people's preferences, wants, and desires. And what gets generated here is surplus utility. Now, if this wasn't just the demand curve for you and me, if this was the demand curve for all kinds of people, let me pull up a new one. Let's just pull up a new one. If this was the supply demand curve for lots of people, then we could see kind of a big picture of what is going on. There's a market for roaming thrones. There are many sellers. Sorry, those are buyers. Many buyers and many sellers. And they come together in exchange. And when there's free-flowing information, like on TCG Player or eBay, they play a major role in having kind of a free, open economy. There's a lot of assumptions, by the way, that are baked into economics. And one of them is information is free. You should know what the market price is of roaming throne. And of course, if you don't, then it might be easy for someone to get taken advantage of. But the market comes together. We have the supply curve. We have the demand curve. There's a quantity that exists in the market, and there's a price that people are willing to pay for that quantity. And on a big macro level, this is where the market decides the price is. Now, what does that mean? It means that the seller that's all the way down here, this seller, is super jazzed to sell because their surplus is quite enormous, while this seller is only a little jazzed to sell. This is the seller, so if the market price is $45, the seller that's close to this dot was willing to sell at $40, $41, $42. If the price is $45, then they're indifferent. They could go either way. They could sell or they could keep the card. We have sellers that are not willing to sell yet. This is the reason why on TCG Player, by the way, if you look at, let's pull up TMNT collector booster boxes. There has been speculation for a while now that these things would go out through the roof, the price. And they are. They are rising pretty strong. The story here is that at release, the price dropped down to, as you can see here, the 300s, mid 300s. It rebounded and then it hung around $400 for a while. And people speculated that the supply would dry up and that the price would shoot up. And we do see a little bit of that going on. We do see supply drying up and we see prices going up. However, the reason why it didn't happen as quickly as some people predicted is because of these sellers, this circle up here, because these are the people that are waiting to sell. And unless a product is actually extremely scarce, like Lord of the Rings collector holiday edition scarce, there's these people that have these that are waiting for the price to go up. And when the price goes up, they're now willing to sell and willing to list it on TCG Player or eBay or whatever. And as the price has gone up for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, people have been listing. And so that's the point. Why doesn't the price just spike overnight? Why can't you just do the math on here and say like, oh, look, there are 10, 20 before we get to 780. And then, so the next 20 sales, we're going to be at 780 and we're selling a couple a day. So by the end of the week, we're going to be at 780. That's probably not true because people are also constantly listing as the price goes up. Oh, excuse me. Right. So those people are waiting. And similarly, these demanders are waiting. There are people that are waiting in the woodworks that say, once the price goes down, this is the game piece army. Once the price goes down, then I'm going to buy. And for the ones that are actually mean that, I believe many of them don't actually mean that. A lot of people don't want to buy things that aren't worth money. And so as the price goes down, a lot of people will be dissuaded from purchasing something in Magic. But for the people who truly want the product, as the price goes down, they will be willing to buy. And so they are waiting, hoping for the price to go down. And then, of course, we have the demanders, the people who are buying Roaming Throne at market price. Some of them were willing to spend $60. Others of them are willing to spend $40. And either way, there's surplus here. And so this entire section actually represents surplus for buyers and sellers. That is the value and the power of a free market economy. What does this mean? Well, I think we can go to big face me now for a little bit. What does this mean? Well, for first off, with an asterisk, this means that trading is good. All trade is good in the sense that if good means surplus, if good means people getting more value than they previously had, trade is always good, because trade means two people or two whatevers coming together, making an agreement to exchange goods in such a way that it will benefit both of them more than if they had never exchanged goods anyway. So by definition, if you believe that extra surplus is good, at least for the short term, then the trade is always going to be good. It's always going to be positive. And I'm putting out these asterisks because I know people are thinking and saying like, well, what about this example of trade being bad? Or what about this or that? And let's talk about those. But real quick, let me point out something that is kind of hilarious in my opinion. I mean, I need to move my face again. Imagine, let's go back to this Roaming Thrones story. So I'm selling, you're buying, and let's say that I find out somehow, like I have a magic ability to find out that this card is worth $60 to you. We already agreed on the price, on $45. How wild would it be if I suddenly took the card back, threw my money in the money in your face, and said, no, I know that this is going to benefit you extra, so I don't want to do it. What? Like this exchange I know is really good for you. It's also really good for me, but it's really good for you. Therefore, I'm not going to do it. What? Like how petty, how immature. Now, I understand trade can get more complicated in politics and whatever, but in general, if you have two people that want to exchange something and they're both happy with it, how crazy would it be for one person to be like, wait, you're happy with this deal? You're going to get something out of this deal? No, I don't want to do this deal. I don't want you to win. I'm going to win, but I don't want you to also win. It's stupid. And a lot of people that talk about trade and talk about, oh, you know, we don't want to do it because that person will win or that whatever will win. You better have a good reason to hate them, because that is just crazy. All right. Before we wrap up today's lesson, let's talk about the arguments against free trade. Since we've established, in case it's not clear, all economists in general, well, all is too strong. The vast majority of economists love trade. Love free trade of every single kind, whether it's between magic cards, whether it's between people and businesses, whether it's between you and Walmart, whether it's between different countries. Free open trade with minimal barriers is what economists like in general. You can always find outliers, but right. So now that that's been established, let's talk about reasons that you might be against free trade and free exchanges, and against trading for roaming thrones or whatever. So one reason, I kind of mentioned this before, is that you might feel like someone is getting taken advantage of. Someone might not have all of the information and therefore not be able to make a good faith trade. And that's a good point. If you didn't know that the market price was $45 for roaming throne, and I was really good at negotiating and I got you to buy for $60 because you were willing to pay $60, that would be unfortunate for you. If you knew that the market price was $45, you could have bought it and saved yourself $15, but you didn't know, and that's unfortunate. It's also just part of the reality that you were willing to spend $60. I struggle to see, take off my glasses for a second. I struggle to see anything wrong with somebody who's willing to overspend on something from overspending on something. Like, let me tell you about when I was in Mexico. I was on a study abroad, quite blessed to go to Mexico on a study abroad. And there's this girl and we're in a clothing store, and there was a shirt that was very nice. She suggested I get the shirt, and I was hesitant. The person who ran the store, of course, approached us and said, "You can get this shirt for $100. And I said, "No, I don't want it for $100. And he said, "Well, how much do you want it for?" And I said, "The most I'm willing to spend is $40, because that was true. The most I was willing to spend was $40. That was just the reality. And the person selling it said, "No, I can't sell it for $40. The cheapest I can sell it for is $60. And I said, "Okay, good conversation. I will not be getting this shirt because I'm not willing to spend $60 on it." This girl steps in and then says, "Don't worry, I'll buy it for you." And then it was like, crap. Like, now I have to buy it because I'm not going to let her spend her money on my shirt. I mean, it's crazy. It's not like we were dating or anything. So it's like, anyways, crazy story. What's the point? The point is that in every transaction, you should go in with a number in your head that you're willing to pay or buy something for or whatever. And if the price is there, then you're good. You can make an agreement. And if the price is below what you're willing to pay, surplus. You get extra cash. If the price is above what you're willing to pay, no deal. You move on. If I am a dumb tourist and I'm willing to spend $100 on a shirt and the guy's willing to sell it to me for $60, but he, takes advantage of me and I buy it for $100, I don't think that there's anything wrong going on. I guess I've been taken advantage of, but I spent what I was willing to pay and it was a consensual transaction. Now, would I ever try to manipulate somebody and lie to them so that they think that something is worth different than what it is so that I can get more money out of them? No, I do not condone that or recommend that. I would never try to mislead somebody in making a transaction. I, as a matter of fact, am not a good salesperson because I'm just not really willing to upsell something that isn't actually worth very much. Okay. Back to the arguments against free trade. So, information facilitates free trade. Lack of information can damper the ability for free trade to exist. Another reason that you've probably been thinking about because, the news and politics and whatever would be socioeconomic, strategic enemies, right? Maybe there's somebody you don't want to trade with because you don't want them to have any surplus. And like I said before, you must really hate them because trade means that you're getting a surplus too. It's impossible to trade without both parties winning, because if one party wasn't winning, they wouldn't trade. It's impossible. So for you to say, "No, we will not trade with you," or, "Oh, we're going to put a tariff," or, "We're going to tax trade," or, "We're going to whatever," you must really hate them, which maybe you should. Maybe they hate you. And maybe you need tariffs to protect your country or your family, or maybe there's a relationship that is bad between you and a game store owner, and so you just don't want to support their business. I don't know. I don't condone that either. Try to have good relationships with game store owners. Speaking of game store owners, another argument against trade is job displacement. Let's say that you and I get so good at trading that the local game store no longer serves a purpose. They're not getting trade-ins because I just keep selling you Roaming Thrones as a backpack seller. And you keep buying them from me because you think I have a great personality. And then the local game store isn't getting any trade-ins, not getting anybody buying copies of Roaming Throne from them, and the local game store shuts down. That is a negative outcome of free trade. Can be job displacement. Free trade also creates jobs. And immeasurably creates more jobs than it destroys. Not the topic for today, but we could go through that. But it is a side effect, which is that if people want to make transactions that exclude already existing businesses, those already existing businesses will fail. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean local game stores. I think local game stores are here to stay. They provide value for the community, which brings in money, but especially they provide value in the forms of liquidity for people who have collections and access to singles at decent prices and a quick time frame. And buying online sucks. So there's a place for local game stores. But you can imagine that if relationships get too good, that jobs can go away. Right. And then the last point about negative side effects of trade is income inequality, or inequality in general. Trade generates inequality because it generates wealth. Not to get like too philosophical or whatever, but there's this great book. I think it's on the shelf behind me. The Great Leveler. It's an incredible book. It is about inequality and how to minimize inequality. And it goes through the history of inequality and how inequality with many nations began the second that technology developed and you could get higher quality food sources. You see, when everybody was poor, there wasn't inequality, but the second that you invented boats that could go out farther into sea and catch larger fish, some people, some huts or houses, primitive homes, would have the bones of larger fish while others had the bones of smaller fish. Technology, innovation, free trade generate inequality. That doesn't mean that inequality is okay or a problem that doesn't need to be solved. But that is just a reality, is that if you program 100 robots to trade constantly and to trade on coin flips, for example, which I guess that's kind of gambling. It's not the same thing as trading. But if you have 100 bots and they meet and you flip a coin and the winner gets the money, gets one value of money from each other. After the first game, 50 robots are out of money. After the second game, after some number of games, one robot ends up with all the money. And that's not exactly the same thing as free trade, but you can imagine if roaming throne goes down to 0, then it would kind of be the same thing, right? That when you trade and people exchange wealth does accumulate more and more into the hands of fewer and fewer people. And another thing we could map out in another video, but that is another downside to free trade. So, thank you for watching. This was Econ 101, Magic the Gathering style. Let me know what you think. Subscribe. My name's Nick, or Professor Nick, Professor Dr. Patrick to you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you.